from the Oakley Studios in Las Vegas, Nevada.
Hello, this is Jesse Oakley III, and welcome to the Oak Zone, where we provide positive words of wisdom for you. That's right, you, the happy people. Now, Mondays through Fridays, I would do my usual show called the Oak Zone, but today is Sunday morning, and it is time for the Sunday Morning Chat Series, where you get to hear a plethora of positive people that are making a big difference in their community. And today, we got ourselves a fantastic show. I looked many places for all the positive people, and I am excited because when I think of positive people, this guest came to mind, was one of the first people that actually came to mind. And knowing what she's doing with her company and her business, I look at my I look at her and think to myself, you know what? This is one dynamite lady that's doing very well for herself, and I'm sure she has plenty of stories to tell about how she got started and everything else. So, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure and great honor to actually introduce none other than Adriana Rosales. Hey, Adriana, how's it going?
Good, Jesse. How are you? Thanks for having me on.
I tell you what, I'm doing fantastic, especially now that you are here. And
Yeah, thanks. It's been a while. It's been a while.
yes, it has. And without any further delay, let's chat.
Yep.
And I hear that you are a part of the business called Adriana and Company. And I have a quick question for you. What is Adriana Company? What do they do?
So, my company started, I believe, about 20 years ago. I've always had a company since I was a young teenager. I usually had two careers all the time. I worked for somebody in the morning, and then in the afternoon I would hustle and do my side job. I Adriana and Company right now is a an event planning company slash executive coaching company. And as of the pandemic, I pivoted along with all the crew that helps me to do massive publishing of hundreds of writers and newbie authors. And that's what we're doing currently. But before the pandemic, I was focused on doing a lot of corporate training and executive coaching. And as most entrepreneurs in the last year did, we all had to be agile and shift and pivot quickly. And that's what we did. So currently, we're publishing anybody that wants to become a published author this year. And I do some side coaching. I don't do one-on-one coaching. I do group coaching, and I also have online training courses for professional and personal development.
All right. Now, the next question I have for you is you hint on this with part of your answer, but how did you get started in this? What was the starting story for creating businesses like this?
I started, like I said, more than 20 years ago. When I was in high school, I just had a lot of friends who were entrepreneurs. I had a good friend who was hustling and putting on events and bringing artists in the Bay Area. That's where I grew up. And I saw that as an 18-year-old kid, he was bringing in, $20,000, $30,000 in a month. And I thought, wow, this is interesting. He didn't have a college degree. So I knew that there was something in that. And then I grew up with five sisters, and my older sister, when she was 18, she was making a six-figure income selling makeup. No college degree. I saw my older sister basically go from having zero money to having professional women leave their corporate careers to join her team to sell makeup. I mean, this was in the 90s, so it was a big deal in the 90s to be making a six-figure income as an 18-year-old. So I grew up knowing that you could make money selling something, selling a product. And I wanted to go to college. I ended up going to a four-year university at San Jose State University, and about 2 years in, I knew that what I was learning wasn't going to teach me what I had already been seeing, which was, an 18-year-old, my sister, 18-year-old kid making, six-figure income back in the day. And then my high school friends making all this crazy money. So and I knew I needed discipline. So I decided to leave college and join the United States Air Force, primarily because I needed food and shelter. And number two, because I wanted to travel the world. And even while I was in the Air Force, I did other things as well. I've always been a computer geek. I started doing web pages back in the early '90s when nobody really knew what HTML was. I don't know if you remember. You might be a lot younger than me, but remember the geo sites back in the day?
I
The geo.
remember.
You remember? Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So yeah, I was doing stuff in the Air Force that most 19, 20-year olds could only dream of. And I was exposed and had proximity to computers and people that were programming. And um, that's pretty much how I started. So when I left the military, because of my military background, I was able to get a great career in one of the most prestigious marketing firms in the Bay Area, and then the rest is history. I mean, I could give you my whole long, drawn out career path, but even while I worked for somebody else, because I was single and I had no children and I didn't get married until almost my 40s, I didn't have any commitments, so I would work. You know, 10, 12-hour days, which was no big deal for me because I grew up in a family where we used to pick strawberries and we used to work the fields during the summers with my father. So when I got to work in the corporate world and people were complaining about not having ergo computers or ergonomic chairs or bad screens, I was just grateful that I was working indoors, that the water was free, and then my boss once in a while will bring in free food. And so I never understood why people would complain about working indoors. So that really, growing up as a young kid with my father in the Bay Area picking strawberries in the field, showed me that, just all this gratitude, and never really complained. So for me, working 10, 12 hours a day was no big deal. And that helped me. That helped me as a woman, because I always outperform the men in the corporate world. I always outperform anybody, really, because I just wasn't a complainer. I didn't complain. I just got it done. And I eventually, 20 years into my career, I ended up in a telecommunications company being a regional director for MVNO, which is a mobile virtual operator. And I think it was about 5 years ago, I decided to leave that corporate career and launch my company full time, which is Adriana and Company. It was really a series of things, because under the company I have, it's like an umbrella. So the Adriana and Company is the umbrella
Mhm.
that consists of a publishing studio, coaching, executive training, and then book publishing, which we sell to some school districts. And we do a lot of low content books. So, for example, if you wanted a manual on how to do a podcast, or you wanted a journal or a notebook or whatnot, we produce all those books. Currently, we have 25 books in publication. And yeah, that's how I started.
Hey, that is quite the story. And Adriana, you had me at strawberries. You,
Oh, I know. I always remember that about you. It's hilarious. And yeah, that was such a cool Toastmasters meeting. And I appreciate the wonderful feedback you gave me for that speech I gave. So thank you.
all right, fantastic. Now, next question I have for you is, what were some of the challenges you faced in creating your business?
Mm. There was a lot of challenges. Uh, Primarily, it was a financial shift. Um, because I had already done all the psychological work. I had been an entrepreneur, like I said, since I was a teen, since I was a young kid. I knew that if you work at something long enough, um, and you really put in your all, you eventually will get recognized and you eventually will get paid. I mean, that's just how it works. And I also did something that was really unconventional, and that most entrepreneurs don't do. And most entrepreneurs, they worry about money, where the money's going to come or whatnot. But I always knew that if I, put some money away when I was ready to do my gig, my side hustle full time, that I would have a little nest egg. And I did, which I was really grateful for. But what I struggled was with, leaving my corporate career, which was a great, a really nice paycheck every month, and then going from that to now nothing, and then having to build from what I had. So that was difficult, but I overcame, because the unconventional thing that I did as an entrepreneur early on was, instead of buying the nice car, the house, the things, I would always go to the leadership conferences, to the Toastmaster meeting. I would read the books. I own thousands of books. I never had a TV in my home. Like, I knew that, when I would move into an apartment or something, like, I was living, with the bare minimum, because I knew that, like my good friend once said, the only difference between me and Oprah is information. So I was like, I wanted to get the information, because, as you know, as for me, as a minority, as a Latina woman in the United States, I was already at a disadvantage. So I didn't have time, number one, to do drugs. I couldn't afford them. I didn't have time to go to parties or do anything crazy, because I couldn't afford it. I was like, no, I have to read. I can't be watching TV, no sitcoms. Like, people ask me, like, did you ever see Friends or Seinfeld, or I didn't see Star Wars till I was in my late 20s. And the reason for that is because I didn't own a TV. All I did was would read, because I knew in my mind that I was already behind from the get go. I was like, okay, I'm a minority woman in the United States. You know, I knew as a young child that not a lot of people really had a lot of respect for Mexican people. So I was like, ooh, I have to outperform. I have to outdo. And I have. It's come at a price. And that price was, not really having, any relationships, or, I had my first child at 30, and I had to, like, really do things different, because I knew that in order to get ahead, I needed to have the edge. And the edge was always my mind. My mind. It was what I had invested in it. So right now I know that this to be true. That if I had zero money in the bank, and everything goes to crazy like it did last year, that I'm going to be okay, because I have trained and I have developed my mind to such a degree that I will always be wealthy. And that's something that you don't get if you watch TV all day, if you do the typical things that people do, buy the house and go to work, and beat yourself up, and then by the time you're 70, you're like, your whole life is gone, and because you didn't invest in your mind. And I know that both of us are like that way, right? Both of us are like total readers, and we're totally into, conferences and leading by example. And um yeah, I don't even know if I answered your question, Jesse, but
Adriana, I'm going to call you professor because you're seriously taking me and happy people to school today. You know what? The answer, happy people, the answers that Adriana is giving you, oh my goodness, it's symphony, it's music, it's right there, it's sweet to the ears. And and this is why I definitely want happy people like Adriana to come to this channel, because of that answer alone, you're getting a good deal on what it takes to actually get the business going. And oh my goodness. Whew, I'm just gonna cool down right now. All right, so let me go ahead and compose myself and get to the next question. Now, what were some of the best moments you experienced?
and the best moments were, for example, signing my very first contract with the city of Las Vegas, when I was in my mid 20s. So I had left the Air Force, and then when I left the Air Force, I ended up in Puerto Rico working for a city mayor there, doing some pretty cool stuff. And then when that project was over, I moved to Las Vegas, and I started this branch of my Adriana and Company called DigiPhoto, which was a graphic design web page development, so in photography company. And this was back in the day where people were still using SLRs. Nobody was taking pictures with their cell phones. I had saved all my money in Puerto Rico so I could buy this 17-inch computer with back in the day was like a 2 gig RAM. And I mean, that was a big, it was really expensive. And I remember um, the city of Las Vegas was looking for a photography company to do the 100 Centennial Project, which was photographing 100 murals in the city representing all of the different communities. And they were specifically looking for minority women entrepreneurs. So, of course, me and my cocky self said, I'm going to go for it. And I did the contract, did the proposal, and went into the city like I owned it. And I remember it was Richard Booker at the time who was running the Parks and Recreations area, who was actually doing that project, and pitching to him. And then he called me a few weeks later. He said that I got it, and he called me in to sign the contract. And you could just imagine, here I'm a solopreneur. I knew that if I got the contract, I had to use some of the money to pay at least 25 photographers to help me, because I went in there as a solid, LLC digiphoto company, who was promising that I would do this huge, massive project for the city. So I go in there to sign the contract, and I remember clear as day that when he hands me over the contract to sign for the money, and I had never seen that much money, um, in that I knew that I would be receiving, nor had I signed that type of contract. And I didn't have a pen with me, so when he put it in front of me, I remember he gave me the pen, and I just remember my hand was shaking because I hadn't seen so much money all together at that moment, um, and thinking to myself, I remember, who do you think you are, Adriana? Doing this big contract, with the city. You're just this 25-year-old kid you know, who has the savvy business cards or whatnot, whatever. And then I kind of snapped out of it, and I signed it, and I was holding my hand so my hand so it wouldn't shake, because I was so embarrassed because he could see, right? So I remember walking out of there, and I just started crying in my car because I was like, I did it. I signed my first gig. I signed my first contract as an entrepreneur, and it was like real money, like life-changing money, for a 25-year-old. And that was the best ever. That was like, I knew that having your own business and doing your own hustle and working at it until you make it, it was worth it, because you could do a lot of things with a large chunk of change. So that was my experience until this day. There's a book that came out, a Centennial 100 Centennial Project for City of Las Vegas, and all the photography is there, for by my company Digiphoto back in the day, with the names of all the photographers that I hired to help me finish that project. And I was a really proud moment, and I did it, as a mid, I think I was 24, no, 25 or 26.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
My goodness,
Yep.
that's quite the moment there.
Yeah.
And for anybody now, let's just say that you happen to meet somebody that is amazed and inspired by what you're doing, and there are people out there that are going to see this video and say, "Wow, this is one truly dynamic woman," and they are inspired and they want to know what would it take to get into your shoes? What can they do to create their own company? What's the best advice could you give for that type of person?
Mm-hmm. It really depends. It depends on what that goal is of the person. So if it's an older entrepreneur or an older person who is really looking at, maybe figuring out a strategy on how to meet, your end financial goals, or if it's a younger person, I would say, eh, stop buying stuff, start reading things, like stop watching TV, stop it. Like, there's nothing happening out in the world right now that is going to feed your mind. You need to be a truth seeker. You need to seek the truth, and the truth is not on CNN or Fox News or any of these ridiculous propaganda machines. The truth is in the people who produce results. So you have to look for the wisdom keepers, the people that are really moving the country and the world forward. So I could give you an example, like people like Peter Diamandis, who 7 years ago wrote a book called "The Future is Better Than You Think." And I'm thinking, how is this guy? I didn't know who he was at the time. I'm like, how's this guy writing a book about the future is brighter than you think if the world's falling apart? Because that's what everybody's talking about. The world's falling apart. And after reading that book, it shifted me, and I was like, oh yeah. And then I started looking at who Peter Diamandis hangs out with, and I was like, oh, he hangs out with Ray Kurzweiler and all the big guys, right? All the big guys that are really running the world right now.
Yeah.
And I said, these are the people that I'm going to study. So for a younger person, I would say, don't do what other people do, and you have to radically shift what you do on a daily basis and do not mirror what the rest of the world is doing. If everybody's doing something, you don't do that. You, for example, I didn't have a TV. I didn't always buy a brand new car. I always bought a used. I bought a cat. Like I saved, I did things that were uncommon. So people, yeah, people would look at me like, oh, she's the weirdo who always drives. Like I used to drive this beat up car when I worked for Sprint, and I managed a really large team. So a lot of my employees would say, "Well, you drive a piece of crap car." And I'm thinking, yes, because I'm not going to get into debt and buy this, because there was dreams and aspirations that I wanted to do, and things that I wanted to achieve, and they require a lot of money. So was I going to waste it on material things, on a brand new car and a brand new house, which is what typically the consumer in capitalist society does to you. So, we have to be cautious. We have to pay attention, and we have to be intentional. So if it was an older entrepreneur, then you're really talking about. I would suggest more of strategy. What's your strategy? What's the end goal? If it's retirement, for some people, that's what it is. But I always recommend feed your mind before you buy stuff. Feed your mind.
Man, I got two words to say to you in that department. Thank you. There's so many people that definitely want to hear this type of message. And I got to say thank you, thank you, thank you for telling that type of message, because so many people that make these sacrifices, these successful people that you see, they make sacrifices, and look where they are right now. It's just a message that's definitely needed. And thank you very much for sharing that message.
Yeah.
Now, how can more people know about Adriana and Company? Where could they go?
Well, you can go on my webpage. It's Adriana.company. And then, any of the links are there in terms of, whether you want to, learn how to be published. My publishing programs that I have right now are two. One is a Latinas 100 project community, where I help Latinas from right now 12 different countries publish all around the world. And it's an anthology. So all you do is submit an 800 to 1,000 word essay, and then you get to be published with me, and you get to leverage my expertise and leverage my partnerships. And then the other one is Women Writers 100 group. It's all on my webpage. You can go there now. I also provide online training for executive coaching. A lot of the material that I train is based on two organizations. So one organization is the Heart Math Institute. I'm certified as a heart math coach, and I teach people the technologies required to decrease stress, and how the connection between the heart and the brain work. And then the other organization that I work with is the John Maxwell organization. I'm a certified speaker through the John Maxwell team, and I teach about 7 different books that he teaches, and it's all online. So yeah, so you can find me at Adriana.company, just like that. It's just www.adriana.company, and that's how you can find me.
And for those happy people that actually missed that, do not fret. The link that Adriana just mentioned will be in the description below. So after this interview, once you're done watching this interview, you get to go and click the link below, and you'll see a plethora of awesome things from Adriana.company.
Thank you.
All right. Now, it is almost at the end of this interview, and it is shout out time. If Is there anybody that you like to give a shout out to that making all of this possible?
Yeah, I shout out to my writers groups, the Women Writers 100 group and Latinas 100 writers group as well. Both of those groups have been amazing during this pandemic, and it's been a lot of fun getting to know all the women from around the world. And I shout out to them, and I'm so grateful to you guys, to you ladies. And there's also men writers in our group, so men can participate as well. But yeah, shout out to them.
All right. Now we are at the last question of this interview, and this is directed to my crew known as the Happy People. If you can offer words of wisdom for the Happy People, what would it be?
I would say, words of wisdom is feed your mind, I think, Warren Buffett said it best: invest in yourself first. Stop buying stuff, read, but don't just read. You whatever you read, you've got to take action, and don't do what other people do. You just do your own thing. People always laugh at me, but I always recommend, like, throw the TVs away, man. Just throw them away.
Wow.
That's my words of wisdom, and that's the truth.
I tell you what, those are fantastic words to go out on. And on behalf of the happy people, I would like to thank you for taking the time out to do this interview for the Oak Zone Sunday Morning Chat series.
Yes, thank you, Jesse. I appreciate you. I know it's been a long time, and I know that we'll connect soon in person, hopefully.
Most
Thanks so
definitely.
much.
Most definitely. And this concludes this episode of the Oak Zone Sunday Morning Chat series. If you want more plethora of positivity, go to YouTube, type my name, Jesse Oakley III, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, ring the bell, like and share these videos with other happy people that you know. On my YouTube channel, you can go to a special link called the Sunday Morning Chat series, where I had a chance to interview a plethora of positive people that are making a big difference within the community, like my friend Adriana. Until next time, happy people, you take care and have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.